So our special guest today is Greg Schweitzer. He's a mindset coach, and he is top-notch in my book. You guys, I want you to tune in. I want you to pay attention, because what you're going to do is you're going to increase your mental toughness today. You're going to find the mindset, the energy to pick up the phone and make that call to that one agent that you know should be at EXP. Yet Mick kind of gets a hold of us, doesn't Mick? And Greg, thank you for helping me come up with that acronym, by the way. In fact, I'm going to give you credit for that. Greg and I were talking about, well, what is this internal dialogue? Now, this was, I don't know, 8 years ago. And Greg said something like, my inner cynic. And so we come up with this acronym of Mick. And the reason we created Mick is because it gives you the power to differentiate the negative thoughts. You know, that thought that says, oh, don't call that person, they'll never join EXP. They're happy where they're at, don't call them, right? That's a negative thought, and that's Mick's thought. Mick wants you to stay small, you understand. Mick wants you to stay within this little comfort bubble, yet everything you want is outside of that comfort zone. You understand that? So then you can differentiate, okay, that's a Mick thought versus an empowering thought. Like, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm just going to do it anyway. So Greg is just a mindset coach, and I want you to just really lean in today. I want you to listen to every word he has to say. So Greg, tell us your story real quick. Just give us a little background.
Sure. And you know what, as we begin, Sean, and just before I tell you a little bit about my story and my beginnings, I want to address this idea of Mick for just a minute here, because it was a beautiful thought. It's creative, and sometimes it's interesting because we're always looking for the next big thing and what's the next amazing idea. And Mick is such a cool idea. And here's the truth of the matter is that Mick is not the enemy. Okay, Mick is part of us, and I've come to, over the years, realize that Mick's purpose is to try to protect us. But Mick is he's an overachiever. Okay, and what I mean by that is that Mick's trying to do what he can to make us safe, and yet he does his job too well. He sometimes prevents us and protects us from the kinds of things that help us to grow and become better and become stronger and really be who we want to be and have what we want to have and do what we want to do. And so I want to encourage you to recognize Mick's voice as a friend, but also our job is to kind of be able to make sure that he's also doing his job well and not holding us back unintentionally. Okay, that being said, I come from my own Mick story. Okay, years ago, okay, when I say years ago, I'm thinking back when we had the previous recession and crash back in the 08-ish era. There was life going on for us as well. And long story short, we had a crash and burn, and we lost our home. And we not only lost our home, we went through bankruptcy, and I lost my career, and I was jumping from job to job because the economy was really tough. And we've all had those, some hard story like that. But what was really interesting at this time, you guys, is that I started to become the kind of person that I promised myself I never would be. I started to believe certain things that made me act in ways that just weren't fruitful and weren't helpful, and quite honestly were disrespectful to my wife and to my children. And there was a day that after all this happening, that after we'd lost our home and we went through this bankruptcy, we were kind of stuck. I was unemployed, and we ended up having to live in an office building owned by a church. I mean, we literally moved into an office, and my dad and I actually had to get in there and create some plumbing and we put all of our dishes up on these bookshelves in this office space, and our clothes hung out in the open. It was a tough time. And I let it get to me in ways that were really dark. And so there was a day where my wife and I were having an argument. And you got to understand, our bedroom was like kind of right smack in the middle of this office space. In order to get anywhere else in the place where we lived, you had to kind of cut through our bedroom. And we're having this argument, and we're yelling at each other, and we're cussing and screaming, and she's crying. And I was just being rude and disrespectful. And I'm not proud of any of those kinds of things. But this is where the things changed for me, is that all of a sudden our two youngest children, who were 4 and 5 at the time, was my daughter and my son, they were my two youngest, came running into the room. They had no idea what was going on. And Mom and I are at World War III, and they come running into the room, and they're looking up at us with these huge grins on their face. somehow they had found my work clothes, my button-up shirts. They'd figured out how to tie ties on themselves, and they were carrying these little things that looked like briefcase. And they had the biggest grins on their face, and they come running into the room and they said, "Hey guys, hey, guess what? We're gonna go to work just like Dad." Dad wasn't working at the time, and Mom and Dad were in the middle of this big argument. And my wife, who was never confrontational, she hates it, looked me straight in the eye and she says, "Can't you see? Can't you see that your kids want to be just like you?" And there has never been a time in my life where I've been hit harder in the chest by a truth. I didn't even know what to say. I literally ran out of the house, down the stairs, and into this garden grotto area. And as soon as my feet hit the bottom of the steps, I heard a voice louder than I've ever heard in my life. And it said, "Greg, are you even someone worth being like? Your kids want to be just like you, but are you somebody even worth being like?" And it was at that moment in that time that I decided, I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to be better than this, to think better than this, to have better than this. And it put me on a journey to start learning what are the better ways to be and to act and to live and to think and all those things. And it's taken me years. And each year that goes by, I learned something new and something else that has aided in helping me to be a better man, a better husband, a better businessman, a better influencer and leader. Have I always done a great job? No, but I'm moving in the right direction. And so I would share with you guys is that over the years of learning all these things, my favorite part of all of this is being able to turn around and share it with people like you and my kids and my wife so that we can do well and live well. So that's my beginnings there, if you will.
All right, good. So let's fast forward a little bit. What are some of the things that you did to kind of shift that mindset to become the person you choose to be? Now, I want to talk really quick about the biblical law of be, do, have. Okay. See, a lot of people say, well, if I have what so-and-so has, then I could do what so-and-so does. Then I could be the person I want to be. Or if even worse, or if I do what I need to do, then I'm going to have the bank account balance. I'm going to have the income. Then I could be the person I want to be. See, those are both backward, right? It's not about having first. It's not about doing first. It's about being first. So Greg, there are 4 things that impact our state of being, as we well know. It's our foundation, right? It's our knowledge, our skills, our mindset, and our habits. Guys, those are the 4 things that impact your state of being. It's how you show up to the world, how you show up to your clients, your prospects, your candidates. And the only way to improve your state of being is improving those 4 categories: your knowledge, your skills, your mindset, your habits. See, knowledge, you got to know what to do. You got to know what to say. Your skills, you got to know how to do it. You got to know how to say it. Focus on those first 2 categories. It automatically impacts your competence level, leads to a higher level of confidence, has an immediate impact on your mindset. And then, of course, the last is habits, right? So, Greg, what were some of the things that you did to take you from where you were then to improve that state of being to become the person you are today? Talk to me.
Great question. So when we're thinking about the 4 things that Sean just shared about, what I want to make sure that we understand is that there's a symbiotic relationship between those things, right? One affects the other, which affects the other, which affects, I mean, your mindset affects your knowledge and your skills, or at least your ability to access your knowledge and your skills and to grow, and vice versa. And so that because of that relationship, the very first thing I had to do is I had to be able to begin to believe it was possible. You see, we don't even allow ourselves to desire what we don't believe can transpire. And so unless I started to believe that being better, being different, being more skilled was even possible, I wasn't going to get anywhere. I at least had to hope that it was possible, because what that did was open up the doors of my heart, open up the doors of my mind to be able to be open-minded and open-hearted enough to be able to receive something new. You see, when we're in the midst of struggle or challenge, or even when we're facing our beautiful dreams and goals, interference can show up, and it can feel so true when things are going hard, or when I think about, God, I just don't know if I have what it takes. It can feel so true. And that's one of the interesting things about emotions. But we have to remember that those emotions are indicators. They're not dictators. Our emotions don't drive our life. We decide how we're going to feel about situation. It's just that When you feel something and it comes on so quickly, it can feel so true and so right. And that's simply because we've gone there so many times that we go there so quickly now. Right? We don't even think about it. When you get in your car to drive home from work, how many of you guys have ever driven your car home from work and then all of a sudden you got in the driveway and you went, oh my gosh, I don't know if I stopped at that stoplight on 7th. It's because we have gone that route so many times that we don't even have to think about it. And the chances are, because you were in your subconscious zone, that you probably did stop at the light and do the things you needed to do traffic-wise. But we got to believe that it's possible. And part of believing that it's possible is looking back into your history and remembering where you've come from, remembering that you have come along a certain path. You've grown in some way, shape, or form. So you already have a history. I don't care who you are on this call. You already have a history of having grown and become better. You've got to go back and remember, I can still do that. I don't have to stay where I am.
That's exactly right. Greg, what is your estimation? What percentage of success in business is mindset? What do you think?
Yeah, this is kind of fun because when you I'm going to say play in the world of mindset and coaching and that kind of stuff, you may hear different statistics. But the truth of the matter is, I believe that it's at minimum 90%, and oftentimes it's more. All of the great resources, we as human beings have been endowed with a hierarchy of faculties, right? Our faculties of will and emotion and memory and reason and those kind of things. But the thing is that we can't access any of those that help us direct our lives without having a belief in that. So belief is everything, right? And so this is why mindset is so important, is because it literally gives us access to all the genius that we have inside of ourselves to be able to do what we want to do and be what we want to be and have what we want to have, right? So it's a very fascinating thing that when you look at how people perform their business, how people study the business, how coaches and trainers teach business, that kind of thing. It seems so much of it is about the externals. And it's like, well, you got to have this system and you got to have this piece and you got to, have this tool and that software and those kinds of things. And yes, all of those things are fruitful, but they are secondary because you can't do the software or the thing without having the belief in the mindset that it's possible and that you have the skill or that you can grow into it.
That's exactly right. So, it's been said so many times that the best CRM on the face of the planet is the one you know how to use. So in order to be the person who knows how to use that software, well, you've got to improve your knowledge, your skills, your mindset, and your habits. I mean, it's really that simple. Greg, one of the things I really wanted you to talk about today, and I know we didn't talk about this prior to, so I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit, is the law of efficacy. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So not to get scientific or anything, but there's this man, his name is Dr. Albert Bandura, and he actually was one of the ones who formulated some of the theory around efficacy. And for your definition, efficacy is really about your ability to make things happen. And there are actually some indicators that help us to be able to create and improve our efficacy as human beings. So if efficacy is your ability to make things happen, then what we also have to be able to bring alongside of that is what we call the locus of control. That's a fancy term that means your belief in your ability to make things happen. So if efficacy is your ability to make it happen, your belief is the locus of control. But the beautiful thing is that you can develop both. Right? Just like a muscle, just like when you go to the gym or if you got up and went for a run or something like that this morning, you're developing your physiological body. You can do the same thing with your ability to make things happen. And so when it comes to efficacy, some of the things that you can take on is what they call, it's like a role modeling scenario. Okay, so when you see other people who have done what you want to do, who are being the way that you want to be, you can model those folks. Now, this is not the same as being a copycat or anything like that. And all of us are like, well, I want to be myself. Of course, you can be yourself and still take on other characteristics. So what are other people doing? By the way, being on this accelerator call on a regular basis is you literally hearing from Sean and all of the people that Sean has worked with and all of the other icons who have done maybe what you want to do. So lean into that. Another thing is what we call it's like a mental emotional practice. Like literally your brain, the part of your brain that helps you take action to be effective is your subconscious. Okay. That part of your brain does not know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. This is why when they did scientific studies, they had a group of people shooting free throw shots from the free throw line. And when they shot those shots, they had some people actually shooting shots and they had other people standing off somewhere else, and they were mentally imagining and practicing themselves making the shots. And when they tested the two groups, what they found is they competed almost toe to toe, almost exactly got the same results of improvement and the same levels of improvement from the ones who just practiced mentally for those who actually physiologically got involved.
That was a study done by Dr. Dennis Waitley. He's the author of the book, The Psychology of Winning. And I had lunch with Dennis Waitley about 6 years ago. We were scheduled for 45 minutes. It went on for like 4 hours. I mean, this guy was,
that's awesome.
Now he's coached the top NBA teams, NFL teams, NHL teams, baseball teams. The Psychology of Winning is a really powerful book to read. And yet at the same time, one of the things I loved about Dennis is he was so humble. I mean, just so humble in how he approached life. He believed, like I believe, that we give to others without ever remembering and receive from others without ever forgetting. In fact, I asked him the question at lunch. I said, how many lives have you changed, Dennis? And he paused for a second. And I thought, what's he going to say? I said, well, Sean, just one, mine. See, guys, we have the opportunity to impact others. And yet by impacting them in a positive way, you change yourself in the process. You change your mindset in the process. And I'll tell you what, that energy of gratitude, you approach every day with gratitude and every relationship with gratitude, it will spin back to you abundantly for years and years and years to come. I see that we got a question from my friend John Mendelson. John, take it away.
Well, it's not so much a question. It's just like sometimes the right thing pops up at the right time. And I just wanted to thank Greg because that's there right now for me. I mean, and as you were talking, it was reminding me of something that I saw back in like 2017, 2018 from Tony Robbins. And I actually have it on my calendar to pop up at the end of December every year. Somehow I missed it last year, but it popped up and I saw it this year. And it's just a little, 10, 15-minute clip where he's just talking about New Year's resolutions versus becoming what you want to be. And his whole, the bottom or the base of it is, if you want to increase your life, you need to raise your standards. And Greg, I've been in a spot like you were talking about where things started to fall apart in my business, yet my kids didn't see it. And they're just like, Dad, I want to work with you when I grow up. And I'm just like punching my internal self in the face going, if you guys knew what I had going on right now. But it comes back to that raise your standards. So if it's okay with you, Sean, I'm just going to post the link to that Tony Robbins video.
I love it. Yes.
In the chat. And it, like I said, it made a big impact on me. And I thought the group would love it. So I'll post it in there, but I just thought this was a great conversation today. I just happy to be a part of it.
See, and John, you also touch on another subject is that, see, when we compare ourselves to others, guys, we kill all joy. I'm telling you, how many of you guys have been guilty of comparing yourself to somebody else other than me, right? Now, I want to share just a little bit of a personal story. Like in 2008, like you, Greg, I went through some major financial issues. I had a land development company, building company, mortgage company, title company, a real estate sales team. And guys, I was making millions of dollars a month. I'm telling you, it was money hand over fist. It was the life that anybody would want to live. It was private jet trips to Vegas every other weekend. It was, hey, you guys want to, you want to go to Telluride? Yeah, when? How about right now? Let's go grab some brunch. And we jump on a Lear 35 and we fly out to Telluride for brunch. I mean, it was that type of a life, right? And then 2008 came along. And it was blood in the streets. I had 16 land developments, over 100 homes under construction, all above $1 million, buyers walking away from $250,000 earnest money deposits. And I'm left holding the bag. I personally guaranteed all those notes. $135 million in debt to the construction lenders, about $32 million in my own cash invested, and lost it all. Yet at that time in my life, when I'd lost it all, I was still living in a 16,000 square foot home. I was still driving a $185,000 Mercedes-Benz. I was wearing a 3-piece suit every day. And while up here was completely messed up, I was only showing people what I wanted them to see. See, we all have problems. We all have struggles. We all go through stuff like Greg went through and what I went through. And yet, when we compare ourselves to somebody else, just recognize they're only showing you what they want you to see. It's like your personal life compared to your Facebook or Instagram life. You with me? I mean, you look me up on Facebook and you see all the posts from my wife where she tags me and you'll say, Sean's life is amazing. And I'll tell you what, we all go through problems. There's no doubt about that. So comparing yourself to somebody else, like John, what you said, your kids are comparing themselves to you saying, hey, I want to be just like you, right? It's challenging because, guys, life is real and the struggle is real. I mean, some of you are trying to figure out, where am I going to get my next listing from? Where am I going to get my next buyer from? I have 0 pending contracts right now and I got bills to pay. And I've been there, done that. Yet here's my input. There's this one common emotion that we all possess that holds us back from doing the things we need to do. What do you suppose that is?
Fear.
It's fear. Fear. And fear is an acronym, right? You've all heard it. False evidence appearing real. It's how it feels. My personal favorite of the acronym is fuck everything and run. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to go head on at the fear. Yeah, I shared this, I don't know, a couple of months ago. Brent Gove shared it with us at the Build conference, where like in the plains of Colorado, like east of the Rockies, it's flat land and there are ranches with thousands of acres, thousands. And they raise cattle, they raise buffalo. And when a storm approaches in Colorado, it always comes from the west. It comes from the Rocky Mountains. You can see it build, and then it comes in and it dumps all this snow. I mean, it's like blizzard conditions, right? Well, the cows, once the storm comes upon them, what they start doing is they start running away from the storm. They run away from the fear. Now they can run about 10 miles an hour. Storm's traveling about 30 miles an hour. Now you can imagine how this goes, right? What they're doing is they're prolonging the pain of the storm. They're making it last longer because they're running with the storm. They're running away from the fear. Buffalo, on the other hand, they see the storm appearing. Once it comes upon them, they run into the storm. Now they can run about 10, 12 miles an hour. Storm's traveling, 30 miles an hour. They get through it that much faster. So my input, hit the fear, just head on. Just go into it. If you're fearful of making that phone call, just pick up the darn phone. I love the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 approach, where you got the phone number in front of you, you got the person's name, and you're thinking, they're never going to join EXP. They're never going to want to align with me. Just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pick up the phone, make the call. All right, back to you, Greg. What are some other thoughts that you have around mindset, buddy?
So this is really good, Sean. Thank you for sharing that, because I'm kind of fired up right now to go make some calls. Okay.
Love
So
it.
now what's interesting here is I want to help for a minute, because much of our conversation has been some really good metaphors, some really good analogy and some ideas, and they help us to think different. And that's the beginning. That's the beginning. And yet I can almost sense here in the group that some of us are going, yeah, but how? That's all good ideas. I want that kind of mindset, Greg and Sean, and I want to be the buffalo, and I want to run into the but how. And so I want to give you guys some insight that's really going to help you think differently around this. And I want you to think of it in these terms. Okay, your attention and your affection. You see, whatever has your attention also has your affection. And what I want you to understand is that wherever your attention is, that is conditioning you to believe what you believe and to do what you do and to have what you have. So whether it's what you're watching on social media, the music you're listening to, attending accelerator calls, right? Whatever that is that has your attention, it is conditioning. You are being trained in conditions. That's just how God made us, is that we're learning machines, we're learning beings. Okay, but we don't realize sometimes is that what we're allowing into our lives is actually transforming us and conditioning us and taking on our affection. Okay, and by the way, you can become affectionately addicted to negative things. You can have emotions that are you're used to and you'll go back to over and over again, even if they feel crappy and junky. Okay. So I need you to recognize that whatever it is that you're turning your eyes and your ears and your attention to, it's affecting you.
Greg,
And
you bring
so
up
when you
just,
look,
oh, go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry about that.
I was just gonna say, when you're looking into 2023, I want you to be very purposeful for who and what you're allowing into your world and into your space. Because if I were you, let me just say it this way. One of my favorite authors, his name is Matthew Kelly, said, anyone or anything that does not help you to become your best self is too small for you. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, it's interesting to think about it in the way that you are, Greg, because it does bring personal perspective to this. See, the more somebody ingests like opioids or alcohol or, tobacco, right? The more they become addicted to it because it's a chemical. Now, the thing I want you to connect the dots to, you guys, is that thoughts create energy and they release a chemical. And if you have a negative thought over and over and over, your body, your mind becomes addicted to that chemical. In essence, you become addicted to that thought. You with me on this, Greg?
Absolutely.
And because you're addicted to the chemical, you become addicted to the thought. So Earl Nightingale said it like this: you can take a seed, you can plant it in the soil of the earth, right? If you care for that seed, it's going to germinate, it's going to sprout roots, it's going to grow. Yet here's the thing: the soil of the earth doesn't care what kind of seed you planted. It doesn't care. It's going to grow it, just like your subconscious doesn't care. So you can take a corn seed, you can plant it in the soil, it's going to grow corn. You could take a nightshade seed, you can plant it in the soil, it's going to grow nightshade, right? Yet the difference between the two is corn is something you can harvest, you can ingest, it'll strengthen and nourish your body, where nightshade is a poison that will kill you. So I'd just be really cautious of the seeds you're planting in your subconscious. Because as Greg said, the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind mind doesn't know what's reality and what's false. So just be really cautious of the books you're reading, the movies you're watching, the television shows you're putting on, because everything programs us, right? And our mind is just like a computer. It can't run a program unless it's been installed. So it starts with programming. It then leads to our thoughts. Our thoughts produce our feelings. Our feelings produce an action, and our action produces a result, positive or negative, which comes right back to programming. And this is the cycle, guys, that consistently shows up in our lives, right? And yet it all starts with programming. And what are you doing to program yourself? I'm so glad you're here today, because this to me is positive program. This to me gives me the energy, the motivation to get out there and just make it happen day in and day out. So I'm so grateful that you're all here. And Greg, I'm going to push it back over to you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would actually like to take a minute and tie a nice little bow on this conversation, especially around the chemical piece of this, right? When Sean was talking about like, hey, there's this thoughts will create an energy, which release a chemical sort of thing. Here's what the science is telling us. That chemical that gets released is it's called dopamine. Mm-hmm. And it can be very addictive. And what's interesting about dopamine is that we have a tendency to want more of it and want more of it. But the problem is that dopamine is the kind of chemical that causes us to continue to want more. But the chemical that causes satisfaction, that closes the loop, right, is called oxytocin. And the problem with things like negative thoughts and some of those things that can get conditioned in us is that we never reach the place of satisfaction. We never reach the place where we get to release the oxytocin, right? It's like, I can't remember if it was Beethoven or Bach. The story is that Beethoven's butler used to tease him because he was Beethoven was constantly making music, and if you guys remember that line of music, it goes fum 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 fum, right? That kind of thing. No. His butler would come into the room and he'd get onto the piano and he'd go fum fum fum, and he'd walk away. He wouldn't play that last note, and would drive Beethoven nuts. He'd be in the complete opposite side of the house, and he just couldn't handle it anymore. He'd run into the other end of the room and he'd play that finishing note. In music, they call that an anticipation. Okay, fum fum fum. I'm just anticipating that final note. The problem is with some of these negative kinds of things, we're playing anticipation after anticipation after anticipation. If we don't have closure, we leave open loops in our subconscious mind. and it causes brain fog and confusion, and we never have closure on certain things, then we can never actually take on new ones. You guys, there's a lot of new and amazing things that can be ahead of you for this particular year, but if you're clogging yourself up with open loops, if you're getting high in dopamine but never getting the resolution of oxytocin, you're causing yourself a lot of problems, a lot of issues with that. So be a finisher, okay? And some of that finishing means finishing with some of the old junk and letting it go so that you can make space for what's new. I heard it said this way: letting go is for the purpose of receiving.
That the hand that's left empty after giving is open to receive. No doubt about that. Now, as you're talking about Beethoven, I was thinking about Roger Rabbit. Do you remember that movie? Back from the early 90s or late 80s, I can't remember, but Roger's hiding behind the wall, right? And the guy's trying to find him. And so he starts tapping, shaved and a haircut.
That's right.
And he wouldn't finish it. And then Roger breaks through the wall and he's like, 2 bits. It's just hilarious. Good stuff. Good stuff. So here's the thing that I want you to connect the dots to as it relates to dopamine. Many of us, we work to-do lists. Now, I think it's important to track everything that you want to accomplish. No doubt about that. Yet the challenge in working a to-do list, guys, is that we want that release of dopamine. We want to cross things off that list. Heck, I've been guilty of completing something, going back to my to-do list, writing it down just so I could cross it off the list, right? Because I want that release of dopamine. It feels good. It makes me feel like I'm accomplishing things. It gives me a sense of fulfillment, right? Yet the challenge in working a to-do list is that because we want that dopamine, guys, what we end up doing ultimately is we tackle the easiest thing on that list first. Am I right? And you justify it. You say, oh, that'll only take 15 minutes. Let me just knock that out right now. Here's the problem. The easiest thing on your list, it's not the thing that's going to move the needle for your production, your bank account balance, or your net worth. It's generally speaking the harder things on that list. Am I right? So yes, document everything that you'd like to accomplish. Let's call that a to-do list. And then what I want you to do is I want you to break it down to a success list. Now, to-do lists are long. Success lists are short. See, they make the heart of the matter the heart of the approach. So you identify, in fact, in the one thing, and I had the pleasure of collaborating with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan in the writing of that book, #1 on New York Times bestseller list, 8.5 million copies sold, and they're still selling a lot. So, and I created all the training curriculum behind the success of the book. We talked about Pareto's principle a lot in that book, the 80-20 rule. So let's say you have 25 things that you'd like to accomplish. I would encourage you to apply Pareto's principle. See, 20% of 25 things, well, that's 5 things. Yet I don't think Pareto's principle is enough. I think we need to go extreme Pareto. So you take those 5 things and you apply the 20% rule again, and you end up with 1 thing, which is the priority of the moment. Now you think about the definition of that word priority. To me, it means the most important thing. The most important thing. So you think of this conjugation of the word to priorities. I mean, how can you have more than the most important thing? You just can't. See, to me, it's one thing at a time, right? Success is sequential. It's not simultaneous. And oftentimes, I mean, how many of you guys have ever been guilty, like me, of saying, I've got too many things to get done today. I don't have enough time to get all these things done today. Yeah. See, it's not that we have too many things to do. It's often that we choose to do too many things. Now, one thing I would like for you to do today, I want you to join our private Facebook group. And Tim, if you could please post that to the chat. Also, Tim's been working hard on our Twitter feed. So if you would, if you tweet, just join our Twitter, please. That would be fantastic. We're just going to be posting all kinds of great content, resources for you guys to improve your mindset, your habits, your knowledge, your skills, and everything else. So Greg, we've got a couple of minutes left here, buddy. Any final thoughts, parting words of wisdom? And by the way, if somebody wanted to engage with you as a mindset coach, how would they do that?
Yeah. Okay, great questions. So let me share with you real quickly how you can reach me. And then secondly, I do have something I'd like to kind of tie on to the end of this here. First off, I am an open book, you guys. So here, I'm gonna give you my personal email. It's greg@catalysttransformation.com. My company is called Catalyst Transformation Institute. And I named it that simply because you're the one with all the genius. My job is just to be a catalyst to help let that stuff out. And secondly, I'm helping you be the catalyst that creates the reactions in your life, the results in your life. And so just know that you can reach me that way. Also, I'm actually in the Icon community on Facebook, so you can reach me through there as well. Now, that being said, thank you for that, Sean. I appreciate that a ton. I want to help. Sean, one of the things you were talking about was sequential versus trying to do it all at once. And what's interesting about this is that the structure of overwhelm is such, and by the way, who hasn't been overwhelmed, right? The structure of overwhelm is that we're focused on too many things at one time. And you see, there's this great author, his name is Chuck Blakeman. I got to spend some time with him. And one of the things he says is that that you can actually, how do I say this? You can get caught up in doing too many things at once instead of doing them sequentially. And so how do you do this? You ask yourself this question: what is the next right thing? It is about priority, but not everything can be a priority at once. And so what's the next right thing to do? And it automatically helps you prioritize. And then what ends up happening is you end up doing the 20% that gets you the 80% of result without having to make it difficult. Folks, this kind of stuff that we're talking about, this success, this mindset, doing well in your business, increasing your downline at EXP, all of that stuff does not have to be complicated. You see, the truth is that when you start improving in one area of your life, it becomes what Martin Seligman called pervasive. It means when you start improving in one area of your life, other areas of your life and your business start to improve automatically. So just pick one. Pick one thing that you want to improve on and start moving in that direction. Start changing how you think about that and start allowing yourself to ingest or give your attention to the kinds of things that are going to condition you and help you be better there, because it will automatically bleed into the other areas of your life. Please let joy and success and happiness and fulfillment be simple for you. We don't have to make this that hard. And just as Sean is around to help you guys out, so am I. Reach out, okay? Sometimes it's hard to see through our own stuff, and it may just take a catalyst to kind of move through that a little bit. So, hey, you guys, this is blessing my socks off to be here. I could sit here for 4 more hours to chat with you guys. You may not like that, but I love this kinds of conversations. So Sean, thank you for the invitation. It's always a blessing to chat with you. And all of you that are here on the call, I'm flying your flag. I'm singing your song, right? I'm standing toe to toe with you as you get out there in front of your giants, okay? All right, that's what I got for you.
Greg, I love it, man. 12 on a scale of 1 to 10, brother. Thank you so much for your investment of time.
My pleasure.
As you guys know, I didn't pay Greg to be here today, yet he just showed up because he's the type of person who comes from contribution. And I encourage you to adopt that same mindset that you're going to go the extra mile for each and every one of your clients, your prospects, your candidates, and you're going to get them over to EXP. You guys, this is so powerful. Let's keep doing this week after week. Every Wednesday, I look forward to this call. Seriously, I look forward to this call, and I'm so excited for next week. And until we talk again next time, just be on purpose, be productive, and as always, be powerful, guys. Happy New Year. I look forward to next Wednesday. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks.
See you guys.